Let's take a look at the interface for VCarve Pro and explain how you use the software to draw and toolpath projects. When you run the software, you'll see listed down the left side of the screen we have options for creating new projects or new files, open existing files. There's also a list of most recently opened files, so if we clicked on one of these names, these files would automatically be opened here in our two-dimensional view. Let's create a new file. So the first thing we need to do is specify the size for our working project, or our material size. So here we've got a piece of material 20 inches long by 12 inches high. Let's specify the thickness of the material as well. So let's say we're going to cut a piece of material that's half an inch thick. Now it's very important to specify where you want the Z0 point to be. This is the point at which you, on the CNC machine, you reference the tip or the bottom edge of the cutter, so that the Z0 point is known for the CNC machining. So here we'd specify it on the surface of the material, or we could specify Z0 to be on the table of the machine. For most projects, we teach people to use the surface of the material. It's also worth pointing out at this stage that we could also work in metric. So we could switch to millimeters, specify the metric dimensions for our projects, and everything that we then design or toolpath would have metric units. Let's go back to inches for a moment. So we've set the size, the material thickness, the Z0 position. We can also specify where we want the X, Y origin to be. So the X0, Y0 origin. This is where these faint grey lines cross. This is X0, Y0. So we could have it in the middle of the project. We could pick any corner. Most projects, people will typically use the bottom left-hand corner. So you'll see the faint grey lines there. This bottom left-hand corner is now X0, Y0. Click OK. So now we've got our piece of material that's 20 inches long, 12 inches high, and half an inch thick. After setting up the material, the Drawing tab is open on the left-hand side of the screen. On the Drawing tab, we have tools for creating and drawing designs. We also have tools for editing designs, so we can change the size, the shape, the scale of projects. There's also tools in here for joining vectors together. So if you've got designs that are constructed with open lines, you can join them together for machining. We can offset vectors. We can use the node editing tools for changing the properties or the shape of a project. Lots of different editing tools. There's also some alignment tools, so we can specify that a project sits exactly in the center of the material, or we can specify it to be aligned centrally, horizontally, or vertically. There's also alignment tools that allow us to align vectors or shapes in a design relative to other shapes. So instead of aligning them relative to the material boundary, we can align shapes relative to each other. On the bottom of the interface here, we've also got options for what's called the layer control or layer management. So layer management, this allows us to organize our data more precisely, and to put different parts of a design on different layers that can then be made visible or invisible. And we can also draw the different layers in different colors. We'll look at this tool in a little bit more detail later. Also on the Drawing tab, we have the option here to import geometry, so we can import designs, so DXF, DWG, EPS, AI, PDF files that contain vector geometry, and we can also import the toolpath information from some of Vectric's other products, Photo VCarve, Cut3D, and the VectorArt 3D Machinist software. So we can open an EPS file, we can open DXF files, etc. We can also import image files. So import, here we can import JPEG files, bitmaps, GIF files, TIFF files, etc. And these files can then be used for vectorization that we can then toolpath. So on the left hand side of the screen we have the drawing and editing tools. Let's just quickly construct something. So if I say draw an oval, so draw an ellipse, we can specify exactly the exact sizes for this ellipse, or we can click and drag with the left hand mouse button to approximately create the shape of ellipse that we want. we can then say, okay, we really want this to be exactly 16 inches long, and we'll make it 8 inches high, and apply and close. You'll see there that the ellipse is selected. If we click on the background with the left mouse button, it deselects. Clicking on the line or the oval selects it, and it's drawn as a dotted purple line. So click on the background to deselect. Alternatively, once something's selected, press the escape key and that will deselect. Or double click the right hand mouse button, click in the background will deselect as well. Now this oval isn't positioned exactly in the middle of our material, so we can use the alignment tools to say align centrally, and it's jumped to the center of our 20 by 12 inch piece of material. Let's add some text to the center of this oval. So we could say we could use the text option to draw text at an exact height, or because we have an oval selected, we can say automatically fit the text into this selected area. So let's say we want this to be some text. We can select the font. Any TrueType fonts that you have installed on the PC will automatically become available in this list. So if you've got special TrueType fonts that you've purchased or installed with other software, then these will become available to VCarve Pro or to Aspire. So let's select Times Roman. So Times Roman font. We'll make this bold. We want it to be centered inside the oval, and click apply, and it's automatically scaled the text to fit inside our oval. We could add an extra line here, so we could say Vectric Limited and apply. Let's make this a wider border and apply, and it will scale the text down for us. So close. If we wish to edit this text, simply select the text, go back, click on the font tool, so draw text, and it opens the text layout tool with the text displayed as we'd entered it originally. We could change the font here, we could select a different font, we could make it italic, etc. Let's put that back and apply. There's also some single stroke engraving fonts. So instead of a TrueType font, which is really a closed vector boundary, we could say, okay, really we want to use single stroke fonts. So these are just single lines that you may wish to run the tip of the cut around. Let's go back to TrueType fonts and apply. So close. So we've used the create tools to create an oval, add some text. We can use the selection tool to select different objects. So select the text or select the oval. There's also a node editing tool. So node edit, and this allows us to now manipulate the nodes or the shape of this design by clicking on these handles. So we can say very easily just click and drag with the left mouse button to change the shape of the design. We can say edit undo to go back, and that will put it back, or we can say redo to go back to the shape that we've just drawn or sketched by hand. Node editing mode can be toggled by selecting the selection tool or by pressing the letter N on the keypad. N will toggle between node and selection mode. So again, N to node edit or selection mode. We've also got tools here for interactively distorting a shape or selection of vectors. So interactive distortion, we can select the text. Let's say we wish to distort based on the bounding box and apply. With this text selected, we can click and drag on the handles. So we could say change the perspective of this, so we could make it look as if the text is coming out towards us, like so. We could also change the boundary line. So we place the cursor over an edge. I could say right hand mouse button, convert this to a Bezier curve, and we could pull the lines around like this. We could do the same on the bottom. Notice as I place the cursor over the bottom edge, a little tail appears on the cursor. So right hand mouse button, Bezier curve, and we can change the click to drag the text around. Once we've finished with the vector distortion, we can say bake the distortion and close. This gives us the vectors. If we click and drag to select, if we click a second time, we can now position the vectors where we want them in the design. So again, click once to select something, click a second time to go into what we call transform mode, where we can change the size of the selection by clicking and dragging. Holding the shift key down scales the object relative to its center point. We can also use the arrow keys on the keypad to nudge things around. You can rotate the the selection, so the little black dots or black handles in the far corners, you'll notice the cursor allows us to rotate the selection around. Let's just say edit undo there for a moment. If we click in the background to deselect, click and drag to select everything, click a second time, we can then rotate the whole thing. Like so. Okay, so on the left hand side, very quickly we've just looked at the drawing operations on the drawing tab, and there's lots more tools there that we'll look at in future tutorials. Now if we wish to calculate toolpaths for this project, let's just say edit undo for a moment. We can say toggle from the drawing tab on the left to the toolpath tab on the right hand side of the screen. So here we've opened the toolpath tab, and this is where we calculate the toolpaths to run on the CNC machine. So we always recommend checking our material. So we've got a piece of 1/2 inch thick material, Z0 is on the surface. We've set a retract rapid clearance gap of 0.1 of an inch. This is the height above the material that the tool can run when moving from one area of the design to the next. So for example, if we were engraving the letter C, the toolpath, once it's finished that, will retract, and it may then drop down to the D, so it will go 0.1 of an inch above the material down to the next letter. So click OK. Here we've got the toolpath operations, and the first line of toolpaths are what we refer to as the 2D toolpaths, so creating simple profile toolpaths, pocketing, drilling and quick engrave toolpaths. The second row are the 2.5D toolpaths, so V-carving, fluting toolpaths, the texturing toolpath, raised prism toolpaths and the inlay toolpaths. If you're working with a spire, there will be another row of toolpaths in here for 3D toolpaths. Okay, let's do a very simple engraving toolpath or V-carving toolpath. Select the text that we wish to V-carve, so the word Vectric Limited there. Select the tool that we're going to V-carve with, so let's use a 1/2 inch diameter 90-degree V-bit, and again this is all covered in more tutorials, so this is just a quick exercise. Calculate this toolpath. The 3-dimensional view opens in the preview mode, and we can click with the left mouse button and twist. So clicking and twisting with the left mouse button, if we preview the toolpath, this shows us the result of V-carving the logo that we've distorted there. So click and twist with the left mouse button. If we pull and push with the right hand mouse button, we zoom in or out. So right mouse button and pull towards you zooms away, right mouse button and push zooms in. We can pan the project by clicking the left and the right mouse buttons together and moving around. So if we wish to zoom in on the letter C, we position that in the middle of the screen, then push with the right mouse button to zoom in. There's also some standard controls in the top right hand corner, so we could say let's go back to an isometric view, or we could view straight down the Z axis or view along the X or the Y axis. Let's say view straight down the Z axis. So here we've got the preview form, so we've literally said preview the selected toolpath that we've calculated. We can change the material that we look at, so we could say okay, we're going to carve this into a piece of oak. That changes the material that we preview the project in. We can also change the fill color, so we can change that to be a red color. Close the preview form. So we've used calculated a simple V-carving toolpath. Now if we were ready to run this or cut it on the machine, we would save the toolpath, select the post processor for our CNC machine. So let's, for example, say we're using Mach 3 in inch mode. So the Mach 3 post processor, save the toolpath, give this toolpath a name, and this can now be loaded into Mach 3 to run on your CNC machine. Close the save form for a moment. Now if we wish to toggle back to the drawing tab, we could use the option here to switch to the drawing tab, or if we've got a very large or wide screen, we can click in the top left hand corner, place the cursor in the top left hand corner, and the drawing tab will fly open, and we can pin this open. So pin, so we've now got both the drawing tab open and the toolpath tab. Or we could just swap like this, so it swaps to drawing, swap to toolpath. But if you've got a nice big screen, you can pin them both open. We can also toggle between the 3D view and the 2D view, so 2D and 3D, and you can also split the view, so we could split them horizontally or vertically. So split horizontally. In the bottom we've got the 3-dimensional preview, in the top we've got the 2-dimensional artwork. We could split them vertically or horizontally. That's just giving you a feel for the interface. So let's just toggle to the drawing tab, double click to maximize the design view. We have the drawing tools that we draw in the 2-dimensional view. We then swap from the drawing tab on the left to the toolpath tab on the right. Calculate a toolpath. Let's calculate another toolpath. Let's say we're going to cut this project out. So we'd say 2D profile, around the outside. We're going to cut all the way through the material. Select the cutter that we wish to use. So let's say a 1/4 inch end mill. Calculate the toolpath. The 3D view is opened. We can preview this toolpath. It shows us what the cutter will produce. We can delete the waste material and it just leaves us with the finished size. So push pull to zoom out, left hand mouse button to twiddle to see the project in a different orientation. You then save the toolpaths, so click to save toolpaths. We can also save the complete project, so file, save as. This saves the complete VCarve profile or Aspire file, so we can open it at a future date and modify and recalculate and save the toolpaths. Give the file a name and it will be saved permanently to disk. There's also options. If we go back to the design view, say toggle to the drawing tab, we could select the vector geometry. There's options for exporting, so we could say file, export as an EPS file or a DXF file or an AI file. And this information could then be used in other CAD packages, for example Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW. So we've taken a few minutes just to look at the interface for VCarve Pro. Thank you.